You want to trade with clarity. Then let me tell you, clarity doesn't come from chasing noise. It comes from shutting out the chatter, the rumors, the hot tips, and looking square at the facts. The facts are written in the tape, on the chart, in the movement of prices. That's where the truth sits. The rest your neighbor's opinion, the morning paper, the fellow yelling in the pit, that's distraction. And let me ask you, when was the last time following distraction ever paid your bills? I've seen more traders wreck themselves by listening to the wrong voices than by bad markets. The market will take your money quick enough. But when you trade with foggy eyes, when you let confusion cloud your judgment, you hand it over without a fight. Do you really want to fight yourself while you're fighting the market? Trading with clarity means understanding one thing: the market tells you what it wants to do. Your job is not to tell the market. Your job is to listen. Too many folks sit down at their desk, puff their chest, and say, "I think the market's going up." Fine. But what does the market think? Because the market doesn't care about you or me. It's bigger than any man alive. And if you can't accept that, you have no business sitting in the game. I used to chase stories. Back in the bucket shops, I'd hear some fellow say, "Railroads are strong today." Or another one claim, "Steel's got to rise, demand is coming." And I'd rush in, buy a few shares, and sometimes, sure, I'd win. But more often I lost. It took me too long to learn that the story isn't in the chatter. The story is in the price action. Have you ever watched a stock act strong, even when the whole market's weak? That's the kind of story you can trust. Clarity in trading comes from reading behavior, not believing in hope. Price action is behavior. Volume is behavior. Patterns, they're not mystical drawings. They're just the footprints of buying and selling. A breakout isn't magic. It's simply a crowd of buyers overwhelming a crowd of sellers. A breakdown. The opposite. Do you need anything more complicated than that? People come to me asking, "What's the secret?" And I always tell them the secret is there's no secret. It's clarity. It's waiting until the picture is sharp, not blurred. How many of you jump into a trade just because you're tired of waiting? Be honest. I've done it too. You sit, you wait, you see nothing, and then you say, "I'll just take this one." That's not clarity, that's impatience dressed up as trading. And impatience is the most expensive suit you'll ever wear. When you trade with clarity, you wait for confirmation. You wait for the market to prove itself. A stock breaks out, you don't need to guess. You see it break, you see the volume confirm, and then you move. And if it fakes you out, you cut it. Simple. Did you lose? Maybe a little. But you didn't blow up. Because clarity also means protecting yourself first. Do you know why most men lose in the market? Because they can't stand not knowing. They crave certainty. But trading is never about certainty, it's about probability. If you can't handle that, you'll never see clearly. The best traders, they're like hunters. They sit still, quiet, invisible. They wait until the prey is right in sight, and then they take the shot. How many times have you fired blind and then wondered why you missed? Clarity is discipline. The discipline to sit when there's nothing to do. The discipline to wait when your gut says, "Get in now." The discipline to admit you're wrong and get out. Tell me, when was the last time holding on to a loser brought you clarity? Never. It only brings fog. It only digs the hole deeper. And don't mistake clarity for simplicity. Simple, yes, but not easy. You see, clarity isn't just reading the tape, it's reading yourself. Because you are your own worst enemy in this game. How many times have you seen the chart, known the setup, felt the signal, and still done the opposite because your fear or greed whispered louder? That's not the market cheating you. That's you cheating yourself. I remember once I was watching a stock inch higher, creeping up day after day. Everything in me said it was ready to break wide open. But I got restless, thought I was smarter than the tape, and I jumped out too early. Do you think the stock cared? It broke wide open without me, and I sat there holding nothing but regret. That's what happens when you lose clarity, when you think you know better than the evidence in front of you. Trading with clarity also means keeping your book clean. Don't clutter your mind with too many positions. You can't see clearly if you're juggling 20 trades at once. Take fewer. Take better. Take stronger ones. Do you think the big money is made by scattering little bets all over the field? No. It's made by waiting, striking, and holding the winners that prove themselves. The crowd always wants action. The crowd always wants noise. But trading isn't about excitement. It's about survival first, profit second, and clarity ties the two together. Clarity tells you when to step back and when to step in. Without it, you're just gambling. And gambling belongs in casinos, not in markets. Do you know why clarity matters so much in wealth building? Because wealth doesn't come from one lucky strike. It comes from repeating sound trades, over and over, compounding gains while cutting losses. Clarity lets you do that. Confusion doesn't. Confusion builds castles in the air, and then the wind blows them down. But clarity lays brick on brick, steady, deliberate. Which kind of house do you want? I'll tell you straight, the hardest part about clarity is patience. Waiting when you're itching to move. But patience pays better than prediction. You don't need to predict the market, you need to wait until the market shows its hand. Have you ever noticed that the big moves, the ones that change your fortune, they only come a few times a year? So why are you trading every day like your life depends on it? Isn't that just feeding the broker and starving yourself? Clarity doesn't mean you'll never be wrong. You'll be wrong plenty. But clarity means you'll know when you're wrong. That's the difference. Most traders don't even know they're beaten until it's too late. They hold, they hope, they pray. I never saw prayer work against the tape. Did you? And don't think clarity means confidence without doubt. Doubt keeps you honest. Clarity isn't arrogance. It's humility. Humility to admit the market knows more than you. Humility to follow the line of least resistance instead of fighting it. How many fortunes have been lost by men too proud to admit they were wrong? Too many to count. When I trade with clarity, I keep one eye on the chart and one eye on myself. Because the chart shows me the market, but my mind shows me my weakness. And weakness is what kills traders. The chart never lies. It just tells the truth in a language few care to learn. Do you read that language? Or do you keep trying to translate it into something that suits your bias? Clarity also means staying liquid. Cash is a position. Don't ever forget that. If you can't see a clear trade, the clearest trade is to do nothing. Sit in cash. Protect your capital. Because when the clear picture does come, you'll need bullets to fire. What good is spotting the perfect setup if you've wasted all your powder on messy shots? Let me ask you this, what matters more, the size of your wins or the size of your losses? Every man dreams of the big win, but clarity teaches you the truth. It's the small losses that make or break you. Cut them small, keep them clean, and the wins take care of themselves. Fail to cut, and you can wipe out years of work in one bad trade. Is that clear enough? I don't trade to be right. I trade to win, and that's the difference between ego and clarity. Clarity doesn't care if you're right. It cares if you're profitable. You can be wrong 6 times and right 4 times, and still come out ahead if the rights are big and the wrongs are small. But try telling that to a man who can't stand being wrong once. He'll hold and he'll sink, and he'll blame the market. Have you ever seen the market lose? I haven't. Now, wealth isn't just about numbers in your account. It's about mental strength. It's about knowing you can trust yourself under fire. That's what clarity gives you. Confidence born not from guessing, but from knowing your process, from sticking to rules, from seeing the chart as it is, not as you wish it to be. Do you have rules? Or are you still winging it, hoping your gut knows best? I've watched men go broke trying to be clever, but the clear trader, the one who waits, who sees, who acts without hesitation when the tape says go, that's the man who lasts. And in this game, lasting is everything. You can't build wealth if you don't survive. Do you know the old saying, the market can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent? That's the truth. And clarity means stepping aside when the market is irrational, not fighting it head on. You'll notice I don't talk about tips or news or gossip. That's because clarity doesn't come from outside. It comes from inside your eyes on the tape, your mind clear of noise, your will strong enough to wait. That's the edge. That's always been the edge. So why chase anything else? Clarity comes from price action, not from opinions or noise. That's the first principle I ever learned that mattered, though I learned it the hard way, with money I couldn't afford to lose. Price action is the voice of the market, and the market is always honest. People are not. People dress up their guesses, their hopes, their fears, and they pass them off as truth. But the tape doesn't do that. The chart doesn't know how to lie. Every tick, every move, it records what's really happening, buyers stepping in, sellers giving up, the tug of war between demand and supply. Do you trust that? Or do you keep trusting the fellow at the corner desk who swears his cousin knows a director at the company? I'll tell you something about opinions. They cost less than air. Anybody can have one. Anybody can sell you one. But when you put money down on an opinion, suddenly it turns expensive. If you've been in this game long enough, you know that most of the noise you hear, the television shouting, the headlines, the whispers, is meant to trap you. It feeds your need for certainty, your craving for action. But ask yourself, when did a headline ever make you money by itself? Did the news of good earnings ever matter if the stock was already acting weak? Did the rumor of bad business ever matter if the stock was climbing on heavy volume? The price knows before the story hits the paper. Always, you want clarity. Watch the action. When a stock refuses to drop even though the whole market is falling apart, isn't that clarity? The buyers are there, stronger than the sellers, stronger than the panic around them. You don't need a headline to explain that. Or when a stock slides lower day after day, no bounce, no strength. Even though some analyst insists it's undervalued, don't you already have the answer? Who cares what it's worth on paper if no one's willing to pay the price today? Value is a story, action is reality, and reality pays. Noise works on your emotions. Price action works on your discipline. Which do you think will build your account over the years? When I was young, I used to sit in bucket shops, staring at the chalkboard, listening to men argue about what a stock should do. One said it had to go up because the company was sound. Another said it had to go down because the economy looked shaky. I watched them fight with words while the stock did exactly what it wanted without their permission, without their input. Do you think the stock cared about their debate? No. It only cared about the weight of orders hitting the market. That's all it ever cares about. The tape doesn't tell you what to hope. It tells you what is. That's why clarity lives in the tape. Every great run I ever caught started with the tape showing me strength before the story caught up. The crowd always comes late when the paper prints the headlines and the brokers call their clients. But the clear trader sees it first in the action, the steady bid, the quiet accumulation, the higher lows, the volume that sneaks in before the breakout. Have you seen it yourself? That moment when the story hasn't hit yet, but the price is already writing it in real time? That's clarity. Now, don't think price action is about some magic pattern. Too many fellows look for secrets in the shape of a bar or the angle of a line. Patterns are useful, sure, but only because they show behavior. A breakout isn't a triangle on your chart, it's buyers overrunning sellers. A breakdown isn't a head and shoulders, it's sellers finally crushing buyers. The pattern is just a picture of human behavior. Can you see the difference? If you only look at shapes, you're still blind. If you see the story behind the shape, you're reading the market clearly. Let's talk about opinions again. Do you know the danger in chasing them? It's not just that they can be wrong. It's that they make you stubborn. You buy a stock because someone told you it can't lose. Then the tape tells you otherwise. It starts sliding, showing weakness. Do you listen to the tape? No, you cling to the opinion. And every point it drops, you hold tighter, because letting go means admitting the opinion was worthless. And by the time you've finished proving your loyalty to the tip, your account's bled out. Ever happened to you? If it hasn't, it will unless you learn to follow the action instead of the chatter. Clarity means shutting out the noise, even when the noise is tempting. Especially then. How many times have you seen the market whip men around on a single rumor? They rush in, they rush out, they burn themselves with commissions and slippage, and when it's all over, The stock is right back where it started. But the tape was never fooled. The tape showed you the real direction all along, steady strength, steady weakness. The noise was just theater. Did you buy the ticket to that show? And let me say, this price action doesn't just guide you in. It guides you out. Opinions will tell you to hold forever. They'll tell you the stock has more room or long-term value. But if the tape tells you distribution is happening, lower highs, heavier selling on down days, why hold? Why give back the profits? Clarity isn't just entry, it's exit. The same truth applies. Follow the action, not the story. Sometimes the hardest clarity is silence. Doing nothing. The tape says nothing clear, the action is muddy, the moves are choppy. But the opinions, oh, they'll scream louder than ever. That's when discipline saves you. You wait until the tape speaks clearly again. Do you know how many traders lose more money in chop than in crashes? They can't sit still when the tape says nothing to see here. But the clear trader does, because clarity means patience. Think about it like this. If you were crossing a river and the water looked muddy, would you rush in, or would you wait until it ran clear enough to see the rocks beneath? Trading's the same. Muddy action means you can't see where the danger lies. Clear action means the path shows itself. Yet every day men leap into muddy water and wonder why they slip on hidden rocks. Haven't you? I'll give you another angle. Noise comes cheap because it preys on hope. Action comes dear because it demands proof. Which do you think will protect your money? I never saw hope fill a ledger, but proof in the form of clear price moves has paid me for decades. That's why I trust the tape. Not because it's perfect, but because it doesn't pretend to be anything but what it is. Opinions pretend. Noise pretends. Action just shows. And here's the truth most traders can't swallow. Clarity doesn't always give you comfort. Sometimes, the tape shows you something you don't want to believe. A stock you love is weak. A market you thought was safe is breaking down. And what do most men do? They ignore it, because their comfort means more than the truth. But clarity isn't about comfort. It's about reality. Do you want to be comfortable, or do you want to be right in your account? That's why I say clarity comes from price action, not opinions or noise. The tape is your only friend in this game. Not the banker, not the paper, not your neighbor with his sure thing. The tape. It's honest, even when you wish it weren't. It tells you strength when you're scared. It tells you weakness when you're greedy. And if you have the discipline to listen, to trust it above your own bias, you'll see clearer than the crowd. You'll trade clearer than the crowd. And in the long run, clarity pays the man who respects it. A clean chart speaks louder than 1,000 rumors. That's the truth most men never want to face, because they'd rather fill their heads with chatter than sit quietly and study the lines in front of them. A clean chart doesn't lie. It doesn't sugarcoat. It doesn't whisper sweet nothings into your ear to make you feel good about holding a loser or chasing a runaway stock. It simply records the action tick after tick, bar after bar, and if you have the patience to read it without bias, it tells you everything you need. How many times have you stared at a chart, seen the direction plain as day, and then let some rumor shake you out of the trade? If you've traded long enough, it's happened to you. Rumors feed excitement. Charts feed discipline. Excitement is cheap, but discipline costs. And that's why most men don't pay the price. They'd rather run with the herd, chasing stories, listening to every broker who says he's got an inside line. But the herd never makes money. The herd is always late, always wrong, always running after something that already happened. A clean chart shows you before the rumor hits. Have you noticed how often the move is already underway before the news gets out? That's not magic. That's the truth written in price action. Let me give you an example. A stock begins to build higher lows, creeping up on steady volume, while the newspapers still say the industry is weak. If you're watching the chart, you see it. Accumulation. The quiet hand of strong buyers taking their stake before the crowd catches on. Then, weeks later, the story breaks. Suddenly every man in the street is shouting about the new boom. But where were they when the chart was already whispering it? They were deaf to the only voice that mattered. Did you listen? Or did you wait for the story to give you permission? A clean chart isn't cluttered with 50 indicators or fancy lines. It's bare, simple, readable. Price and volume, that's your foundation. The rest is decoration, and decoration can distract you from the truth. You don't need the chart to predict the future like some crystal ball. You only need it to tell you what's happening now and to point the way the probabilities lean. Isn't that enough? The rumor promises certainty. The chart promises honesty. Which one do you trust more with your money? Rumors work because they play on greed and fear. A whisper of a merger sends men rushing to buy, even if the chart shows exhaustion. A whisper of trouble sends them fleeing, even if the chart shows strong support. And in both cases, they let the noise override the signal. But a clean chart, stripped of the clutter, strips you of excuses. It says, here's what the market is doing. Do you want to respect it or not? There's no middle ground. I've seen traders ruin themselves by believing every word they hear. They crowd into stocks based on tips, piling in at the top, and when the inevitable sell-off comes, they curse the tipster. But it wasn't the tipster who forced them to buy, it was their refusal to read the chart. Because the chart would have told them the truth extended, overbought, volume drying up, clear as daylight. But they ignored it because a rumor felt more exciting than a quiet chart. Do you see the difference? You know what a clean chart gives you that rumors never can? Context. You can hear that a stock is hot, but hot compared to what? If the sector is weak, if the market trend is down, if the breakout is failing, then what does hot mean? Nothing. On a clean chart, you see it in context. The breakout either confirms with volume, or it doesn't. The trend either holds, or it breaks. No opinion can change what's already written there. Men ask me, how do you know when a rumor is real? I tell them I don't. I don't need to. The chart knows. If a story is real, it will show itself in the price. Strong demand will step in, and the stock will move with authority. If it's false, the move will falter. Volume will fade, and the price will sag back. Why chase stories when the chart already sorts truth from lies for you? Isn't that the kind of clarity you want? Think of all the energy traders waste by chasing whispers. They jump from stock to stock, rumor to rumor, like bees chasing every flower in the field. And at the end of the season, what do they have? Nothing but fatigue and commissions paid. Meanwhile, the man who watched the clean chart, who saw the real setups, he's holding steady winners. He didn't chase. He didn't guess. He just followed what was plain to see. Which trader do you want to be? A chart doesn't argue with you. It doesn't flatter you. It doesn't bend itself to your ego. It just shows you the truth. Sometimes the truth is painful. Your favorite stock is breaking down. The market is topping. Your position is weak. But would you rather face the pain early or the ruin later? Rumors give you hope, and hope is the most dangerous drug in trading. A chart denies you that drug. It gives you clarity instead. Do you crave hope or do you crave profit? Let me tell you something about clutter. A dirty chart, one filled with a dozen indicators, every color of the rainbow. Every line you can draw is no better than a rumor mill. It gives you excuses, reasons to delay, reasons to believe what you already want to believe. But a clean chart, price and volume, trend lines drawn with restraint, forces you to face the action. It forces you to accept what's happening, not what you wish. Can you handle that kind of honesty? Every great trader I've known respected the clean chart above all else. They didn't care about headlines. They didn't chase stories. They waited for the chart to tell them when to act, and when it did, they moved without hesitation. Do you think those traders had fewer rumors whispered into their ears? No. They just knew better than to listen. They knew the only real whisper worth hearing was the one traced out by price. A clean chart is also a mirror. It doesn't just show the market, it shows you. Your patience, your discipline, your willingness to wait for clarity. Because if you're restless, you'll see signals where there are none. If you're greedy, you'll convince yourself a weak rally is strength. If you're fearful, you'll call a normal pullback a disaster. But if you strip the noise, if you trust the chart, you can see past your own emotions. That's clarity, and that's priceless. I've watched stocks walk a perfect path, step by step, long before the papers caught on. The stories always arrive late, but the chart never waits. It shows you strength before the headlines, weakness before the collapse. And yet most men still trade the headlines. Why? Because it's easier to listen to a story than to trust their own eyes. But this game doesn't reward easy, it rewards clear. And a clean chart gives you clear. If you strip this business down to its bones, it's simple. Price is the fact. Volume is the witness. Everything else is commentary. A clean chart captures the fact and the witness in one frame. Rumors are just noise in the courtroom. Which do you think the judge listens to? The facts or the shouting? And in the market, the judge is your account balance. It always rules in favor of the chart, never the rumor. The tape tells the truth, if you have the discipline to listen. That's the foundation of every dollar I ever made in the market, and it's the foundation of every dollar I ever lost when I forgot it. The tape never lies. People lie, stories lie. Your own mind will lie to you when you want something badly enough, but the tape, those numbers clicking by, the orders flashing, the rhythm of buying and selling, that is the one place where truth sits plain. The trouble is not in the tape speaking, it's in the trader listening. And tell me, how many times have you ignored what the tape was saying because you already made up your mind about what should happen? Most traders don't fail because they can't read. They fail because they won't listen. They let their bias, their hope, their fear drown out the tape. The tape is like a drumbeat, it keeps the rhythm of the market. But if you're too busy humming your own tune, you can't hear it. You convince yourself that a weak stock is strong, or that a topping market still has room to run, just because you want it to. The tape told you the truth all along. The problem was your refusal to accept it. I remember the first time I truly heard the tape speak. I was sitting in a bucket shop, watching the numbers roll on the board. A certain stock, everyone was sure it was going higher. The papers praised it, brokers pumped it, fellows in the room bought it hand over fist. But I noticed something every time it tried to rally, it stalled. Every bounce was weaker. The selling was heavier than the buying. That wasn't opinion, that was action. The tape was clear, so I went short. They laughed at me. They called me a fool. But when the stock cracked wide open, the laughter stopped. The tape had told me the truth, long before the crowd wanted to believe it. Have you ever been in that position, seeing the truth before others, and having the guts to act on it? Discipline is what makes the difference. The tape is always talking, but most traders only listen when it says what they want to hear. That's not listening, that's filtering. And filtering is how you lose. Discipline means hearing the tape when it cuts against you, not just when it agrees. If the tape says you're wrong, you're wrong. End of story. You can either accept it early and cut the loss, or you can ignore it and let the market teach you the hard way. Which way do you prefer to learn? The tape tells you more than direction. It tells you character. It tells you who's in control, buyers or sellers. It tells you whether a move is strong or weak. Look at volume, look at speed, look at persistence. A strong market doesn't hesitate, it pushes. A weak market doesn't hold, it sags. The tape is the pulse, the heartbeat of the market. Do you trust the heartbeat, or do you keep listening to the whispers around you? A trader without discipline is deaf to the tape. He may see it, he may even quote it, but he doesn't hear it. He'll say, "Yes, I see the stock is weak, but I think it will turn." That bit is the voice of ruin. The tape already told him the truth, and he chose to argue. And the market doesn't argue back, it just takes his money. Haven't you done the same? Haven't you argued with the tape, only to find yourself deeper in the hole than when you started? You see, the tape has no bias. It doesn't care about your opinion, your analysis, your charts, or your dreams. It just records what is. That's why it's the only truth worth listening to. But because it doesn't flatter you, it's hard to accept. It will tell you you're wrong more often than you're right. And that's where discipline comes in, the discipline to say, "The tape is against me, I'm out," instead of clinging to your ego. Do you want to protect your ego, or do you want to protect your capital? Every great move in the market is foreshadowed in the tape. Accumulation shows up long before the headlines. Distribution shows up long before the panic. The tape whispers the truth early, but most traders wait until the shouting starts. By then, it's too late. Why do you think professionals spend their lives watching the tape? Not because it's glamorous, not because it's exciting, because it's the only way to see the truth before the crowd sees it. Isn't that the advantage you're after? The problem is, listening to the tape requires patience. It doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. A stock drifts up, volume slightly heavier on the up days, lighter on the down days. Nothing dramatic, nothing flashy. But the tape is telling you accumulation is happening. If you're patient, you'll catch it before the breakout. If you're restless, you'll miss it, and by the time the breakout happens, you'll be chasing with the crowd. How many times have you bought late because you couldn't wait for the tape to confirm? Discipline also means ignoring false signals. The tape doesn't lie, but your interpretation can. A sudden spike on no follow-through, that's noise. A shakeout before a real move, that's the market testing. If you lack discipline, you'll chase every wiggle, every tick, and bleed yourself dry.